I'm Ping Zhu, and I'm an illustrator. We are in my studio in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. This building is called the Pencil Factory. There's a lot of different illustrators and designers also in the building. It's like kind of a creative studio space. I grew up in Southern California in a city called Arcadia. My parents, they studied meteorology when they were in China. For me, I was just like, took one look at it and I was like, I don't think this is gonna be it for me. And I wouldn't say that I was especially great at drawing or, creativity. I think it took many forms just as a child, you're just like imagining things. I liked to play alone and like kind of make imaginary worlds. I went to drawing classes and I think it really resonated with me. I just wanted to find something that was mine, and drawing was that, but becoming an illustrator was kind of a different process. I don't know when I really figured that illustration was a job. I just figured I might as well go towards something that I had interest in, that I felt like there's no like right or wrong necessarily. There's just a way of thinking that can be expressed in a more abstract way. In the beginning, when you like drawing and painting, you are like, oh, how do I put this into context? And then you get the context, and then all of a sudden you have to work kind of backwards and be like, well, how do I solve this problem that already exists? This is about abandoned children in China. This was for an agency here in New York called Mother. There was like a call for internships. They referred to the future interns as babies. The New York Times was like the gateway into all this. They gave me my first illustration job when I visited New York when I was in college, and, just pandered my portfolio, nervous, sweaty student, being like, hello, I am trying to make it in this world. Will you please have me? And that was, almost 10 years ago now. I paint in gouache on paper. Medium-wise, it's just like a very pleasing material for me. I like the process of having to let things exist as they do once they leave the brush. The idea of making things by hand, that's a craft that I would hate to see disappear. Computers are great, but I think that there's something about being very tactile with my work that I hope is something that I can preserve. It's still a challenge to still keep up with people working in the computer and be like, okay, let me get my paints out. I'm gonna make this painting for you in a few hours. I was commissioned by Criterion to do the DVD cover for Tampopo, and they also needed a poster for it. Tampopo was a really bizarre film. It was funny, and it was sexy, and it was weird, and these are all things that I enjoy. So I was like, well, this is perfect. And it had to do with food. It was had very odd tension. So this is the original painting of it before the edits. The poster was essentially a noodle bath with heads and hands and things happening, and very iconic scenes in the film. There was no real line that you could draw from one to the other, and I think having them all mixed together in this ramen bowl was a way of just being well, this is all absurd. They're all contained in this strange universe and this story. So we're just gonna mix them all together and hopefully it'll be delicious. I wanted to preserve some of that weirdness and kind of sexiness to kind of bring that to the table visually. The egg yolk scene is classic, and I think there was no way to not have that. So in the actual the DVD itself, the hole in the center, I rendered it so that that hole was where the yolk would be. I always enjoy a film that has a little bit of lightheartedness to it. It was a film that I could watch and just be I had a really great time. That was super crazy, and I just felt I was involved in, I don't know, a weird sex party, and all of a sudden I came out and I feel experienced, you're just that was fun and I had a good time. What I do for work is not the same process as something I would do for myself. I love painting and, gouache and just that process, but because it's been such a long time since I've been able to say I've done this personal project for myself, that I'm trying to figure out whether or not the work that I'm doing for myself even looks like the work that I'm doing for work anymore. With the book that I'm working on, it's trying to find a new way in. I am illustrating a children's book about Flannery O'Connor and how she was pretty much like a very unique writer. She was a bit of an odd bird. It's a book about her life, but it's kind of reminding kids to be yourself and that like being a misfit is actually a strong suit rather than something that you should try and change. This isn't going to be like the book, but I think the process of finding like what the book will look like requires a little bit of experimenting and a little bit of unknown. I feel like the cut paper feels like a sketch where it's like, well, I just want to use these colors. I just want to see what this shape makes with something else. And it's instilling a bit of play in the process. The work that I usually do, it's maybe like anything from a day to like maybe a few weeks to like a month at the most. But it's very rare to get any kind of project that would give you years to work on. Being able to invent a world is something that I've never really done before, so it's a little bit daunting, but I think, I'm just gonna have to throw myself into it and see what happens.